These men and women are Bosnian Muslims from Srebrenica. On the 11th day of every month, they come here to pray and to remember those who were killed in what has been called the worst atrocity in Europe since World War II, the genocide of Srebrenica. Almost 15 years ago, on the 11th of July 1995, more than 8,000 ethnic Muslim men were separated from their women and children and killed. The man accused of masterminding what has been termed Bosnia's ethnic cleansing, Bosnian Serb wartime leader Radovan Karadzic, is now on trial at The Hague. Hatice Mehmetovic hopes this trial will bring justice.
I
had two wonderful boys, a husband, brothers, nephews, but I lost them all and now I'm alone. I'd give anything, do anything to stop that ever happening again. People shouldn't have to fight for their justice, their truth that others refuse to grant them. Justice and truth belong to all, including the families of Srebrenica.
Although Bosnia's conflict raged on for almost 4 years, from 1992 to the end of 1995, it is Srebrenica in the east of the country which has come to symbolize a nation which had to be divided to end the war. Today, Bosnia-Herzegovina has two entities, one the Muslim Croat Federation and the other the Serbs' Republic of Srpska, which includes Srebrenica. Across from Srebrenica's memorial lies this old factory, which in 1995 was the headquarters for the UN peacekeeping troops. It was meant to be a safe haven, but on the 11th of July, Bosnian Serb forces broke through the defense and rounded up the men, some just boys, to their eventual death. 15 years later, the role of these UN troops is still mired in controversy. Questions remain not only as to why the UN failed to stop the killings, but who was responsible. Kada Hotic lost her husband and son, a son whose remains have yet to be found. She's looking for answers.
As long as criminals are not made to pay for their crimes, as long as justice does not condemn certain people, groups or organizations, I will see the potential killer of my son in the face of every Serb I meet. I have to know who killed him, so I can get back to respecting normal Serbs again, like before the war.
But for both Muslims and Serbs in Srebrenica today, there's a tacit agreement that life can never be like it was before the war. Out of a pre-war population of almost 40,000, today there are only 10,000 people. 2/3 are Bosnian Serbs, whereas before the majority were Muslim. They also agree that the main problem now is unemployment, 40%, and a reality that the past looms too heavily in this former mining town. Milos Milovanovic was born in Srebrenica. For him, reconciliation can only come when the killings against Bosnian Serbs are also commemorated.
Na prostoru opštine Srebrenica bio zločini nad jednim I nad drugim narodom.
There were crimes against two peoples in Srebrenica, even if recently we've only talked about crimes against the Bosnians, and the ones committed against the Bosnian Serbs are never mentioned.
Nigdje ne spominje, to je jedan od razloga zbog čega.
This is one of the reasons why we're never allowed to put the two peoples suffering in the same context. Of course, we condemn every crime and all those responsible have to be brought to justice. But we are against collective guilt forced on a whole people.
Collective guilt or not, there's little denial that July 11th, 1995 is a date still mired in sorrow but also in controversy. Last year, the European Parliament proclaimed the 11th of July a day of commemoration of the Srebrenica genocide, calling on all of Europe to support the move. But the Bosnian Parliament has yet to approve such a resolution. Serb members argue it ignores the fact that they too were victims. Emir Suljagic wrote Postcards from the Grave, a book about his survival of the Srebrenica massacre. He's against the EU resolution, but for a different reason.
It's my personal belief that to reduce everything that happened in Bosnia from 92 to 95 to 5 days in July flies in the face of reality. It flies in the face of the facts. As dark a page it may be in the history of this country, and I have survived that, pretty much belies the reality of ethnic cleansing, of genocide, of what happened in Bosnia.
It's estimated that Bosnia's inter-ethnic war cost more than 100,000 lives and displaced thousands more. This year marks the 15th anniversary of the Dayton Peace Accords, which ended the conflict by dividing Bosnia among ethnic lines. It's a division which, although meant to be temporary, has recently highlighted growing tensions among the political factions. Bosnian Serb Slavko Jovicic spent most of Bosnia's war in what he calls concentration camps. A member of the Bosnian parliament, he warns a resolution on the Srebrenica genocide will create more tension.
Srebrenica nešto tragično, ali ponavljam, ta rezolucija.
It's true that Srebrenica is tragic, but I repeat that this resolution will cause further conflict. Why? Because the Serbs in the Republic Srpska will never accept it, as it's impossible for them to get their victims talked about.
Srebrenica's post-war road to recovery has been far from smooth. A recovery that, for like the rest of the country, has been stalled by a lack of political will to introduce constitutional reforms called for under the Dayton Peace Accord. And to make matters worse, on February 10th, the Parliament of the Republic of Srpska approved a law that will allow the Bosnian entity to conduct referendums, even one on eventual independence.
If you take a look at the sort of recent manifestations of what you'd call nationalism, you'll see that for the most part, it's a way for the parties in government to escape responsibility. If you play with referendum in this country, you're calling for war. Who should be so irresponsible to stand by while this is going on? I don't know. But this is where the international community should come in and say, hey, no, this is not happening. Not again. We've invested so much money in this country, so much time, so much effort. We're not going to stand by and watch you guys manipulate the deepest fears of the people who live in this country.
While this Balkan country struggles to come to terms with its past, the hope is that Karadzic's trial will not only bring some justice, but act as a reminder that politics along ethnic lines have always divided Europe.